right, get ready for this one. We're going to dive into a story about a young man named Mark. He's 24 years old,
Okay.
and he decides to embark on this journey, right,
Mm-hmm.
to find the woman who gave him life.
That's right. Mark was adopted at birth, and he always knew about his biological mother, Emily.
Okay.
But what's remarkable is that Emily wrote him a letter
Wow.
when she was just 14,
Okay.
the same age that Mark was when he first read the letter.
Wow. So she was pretty young, huh?
Mhm.
What kind of things did she express in that letter? Like, was she open to him
Mhm.
finding her someday?
Yeah, the letter, I mean, it's filled with just raw emotion, you know?
Yeah.
You can feel the weight of her decision in like every word.
Mhm.
She expresses deep sorrow for not being able to raise him, but she hopes that he
Yeah.
would have a happy life. And yes, she does say that. She explicitly states that she's open to contact someday.
That must have been quite a discovery for him at that age, you know?
Right.
Did he actively try to find her after reading the letter?
Absolutely. He always wanted to find her, but it felt like
Yeah.
searching for a needle in a haystack,
Right.
especially, after his adoptive family moved. But years later,
Yeah.
fate intervened in the most unexpected way.
Yeah.
He found Emily working at a diner, just 2 hours away from where he lived.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. So did he just walk in and like announce, "Hey, Mom, here I am"?
No, not quite. He decided to frequent the diner without revealing his identity. He became a regular,
Oh, wow.
just observing her, getting to know her from a distance.
That must have been, I mean, just emotionally challenging, right? To be so close to his biological mother, yet unable to reveal himself. So what was Emily like during like those initial interactions?
She was described as this very warm and friendly person, like
Okay.
the kind of person who uses, terms of endearment like honey with her customers,
Yeah.
completely unaware that the young man she was serving coffee to was her son.
Wow. I can't imagine the turmoil that, that Mark must have been going through.
Right.
So how long did he keep up this charade
Yeah.
before finally deciding to reveal his identity?
It was a difficult decision for him. He grappled with it for months.
Yeah.
Interestingly, just like Emily had written him a letter all those years ago,
Oh, wow.
Mark considered doing the same thing.
Wow.
But in the end, he knew he needed to do this face to face.
Wow. The anticipation's killing me. So walk me through that moment,
Yeah.
How did the revelation unfold?
Okay, so picture this, right? It's late evening, Emily's shift has just ended, and Mark's waiting for her in the parking lot.
Okay.
He approaches her, he's nervous, and he explains that he has something important to tell her. And then he pulls out the letter.
Oh, my God.
The letter she wrote him years ago.
I bet she was just completely taken aback. Why, what was her reaction?
Oh, it was intensely emotional. She broke down, started sobbing before Mark could even fully explain himself.
Yeah.
The recognition was just instant.
Wow. What happened after that, like, initial wave of emotion?
Yeah. They embraced each other, tears streaming down both their faces, and Emily kept asking, "Can I hug you again?" as if to make up for all the lost years. At one point, her legs actually gave way under the emotion of it all, and Mark had to support her.
Oh, my God. That's a powerful image.
Yeah.
So what did they do next? I mean, did they just stand there in the parking lot all night?
Well, Emily insisted they reopen the diner. They spent the next few hours just talking, sharing their stories over coffee and pie until 2 a.m.
Wow. Okay, so they finally get to talk.
Yeah.
Did Emily share any thoughts about, her life after the adoption? Did she have any inkling that Mark might be trying to find her?
Well, interestingly, she confessed that she had sensed this familiarity with Mark from
Personal.
his second visit onward.
Oh, wow.
But she pushed the feeling down, afraid to hope that it could actually be him.
Wow.
Imagine that. For years after the adoption,
Yeah.
every time she saw a young man Mark's age,
Yeah.
she wondered if it could be him, only to be disappointed.
Wow. That must have taken just a huge toll on her emotional well-being.
It did. She went through periods of deep depression, burdened by the weight of her decision and the uncertainty of his life.
It's heartbreaking to think about, her carrying that weight all those years.
Right.
It really highlights, I think, the complexities of adoption and just the lasting impact that it has on birth mothers.
Yeah.
Did Emily ever mention Mark's biological father, Jake? Was he part of the picture at all?
Yeah, she had actually stayed in touch with Jake, who's also 38 now, all these years.
Yeah.
They made a pact that if Mark ever sought them out, they'd both be reachable.
Wow, that's incredible foresight on their part. I'm thinking about Jake now, and I'm wondering how he handled the adoption.
Yeah.
Did Emily shed any light on his experience at all?
It seems like he really struggled with the decision. While he understood that, giving Mark up for adoption was the best choice at the time,
Right.
it was incredibly painful for him. Unlike Emily, who poured her heart into that letter, Jake couldn't bring himself to leave anything for Mark. The potential of never seeing him again was just too much to bear.
Wow, that's so interesting how, they had different coping mechanisms.
Right.
Emily holding on to that thread of connection through the letter, and Jake choosing to distance himself to protect himself from further pain. What was Emily's biggest concern when she finally met Mark?
More than anything, she wanted to know if he'd been happy.
Huh.
You could see the relief just wash over her when Mark spoke about his loving adoptive parents and his joyful childhood. It was as if this huge weight was lifted from her shoulders.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Did Mark express any feelings about being adopted during their conversation?
He reassured her that her decision had given him a good life,
Wow.
which led to another, deeply emotional moment between them.
Yeah.
Emily then shared that she'd remained in the same city all these years,
Right.
hoping that Mark would find her when he turned 18. And when he didn't, fear and uncertainty crept in. She worried he might resent her or that he hadn't even been told about the adoption.
Oh, wow. So she carried the weight of potential rejection on top of everything else.
Yeah.
Was Emily able to express any of her feelings for Mark directly during their conversation?
Absolutely. Her love for him shone through in every word, every glance.
Yeah.
She gazed at him with this mix of joy and sadness, and even remarked on how much he resembled a young Jake.
It sounds like their reunion really provided a sense of closure and healing for both of them.
Yeah.
So what did they decide to do next after this incredible meeting?
Well, Emily asked if they could have dinner soon, and eventually if Mark would be open to visiting her home to meet her husband. Mark was just elated and readily agreed.
Ah,
They exchanged numbers, marking the beginning of their new chapter.
what a beautiful turn of events.
Yeah.
Before they parted ways that night, did they have any other exchanges?
Later that evening, Emily sent Mark a heartfelt message, expressing gratitude for this gift she never expected. Overwhelmed with emotion, but in a positive way, Mark confided in his girlfriend, finding comfort in her embrace as he cried tears of happiness.
Wow. This story is incredibly moving.
Yeah.
It's a testament to the, enduring bond between a mother and her child,
Right.
even when separated by circumstance. And this raises, an important question about adoption in general.
Yeah.
Does it always have to be, this black and white, closed adoption versus open adoption?
That's an excellent point. This story really encourages us to move beyond those simplistic narratives. Adoption isn't just about finding homes for children. It's about recognizing, the intricate tapestry of relationships and emotions
Right.
that are woven into these experiences. We hear terms like closed adoption, open adoption,
Right.
but we rarely, delve into the nuances of what those situations actually entail for the people involved.
It's about acknowledging that adoption isn't an ending, but rather a beginning.
Right.
A beginning filled with, challenges, of course, but also with incredible potential for love, healing, and growth.
You've hit the nail on the head. And for some, like Jake, the pain of separation may necessitate, a different approach. One where distance provides a coping mechanism.
That's true. And Emily's letter highlights, another fascinating element of the story.
Yeah.
Despite being written when she was just a teenager, it held such profound significance for Mark.
Right.
It provided hope, kept that connection alive, and ultimately led to their reunion.
It really speaks to the power of even the smallest gesture. That letter acted as a lifeline, a tangible expression of love that transcended time and distance.
And Mark was so deeply moved by it that he almost reciprocated with a letter of his own
Right.
before deciding on the face-to-face meeting. It's almost as if the letter came full circle.
Precisely. It beautifully illustrates how actions, however small they may seem, can ripple outwards and create unexpected connections.
The story really makes you think about the intricacies of, human connection.
Yeah.
Did Emily have any regrets about placing Mark for adoption? Did she ever express any feelings of, guilt or self-blame?
While she acknowledged the pain of her decision, she never framed it as a regret.
Okay.
She understood the circumstances surrounding Mark's birth and recognized that adoption was the best option at the time. However, that didn't negate, the grief and longing she experienced for years.
That makes sense. It's not about erasing, the emotions associated with the decision,
Right.
but rather recognizing the complexity of the situation
Mm.
and honoring, those different layers of feelings involved.
Yeah,
Emily's story is a powerful reminder of, the resilience of the human heart.
it is.
To go through such a difficult experience at such a young age and still emerge with so much love to give is truly inspiring.
It is. And it's important to remember that everyone copes differently with loss and separation. There's no right or wrong way to process those emotions.
This story certainly makes you contemplate the different paths that people take in life and how those paths intersect in unexpected ways.
Yeah.
Do you think their reunion was just a matter of chance? Or was it something more, something destined to happen?
That's a question that's difficult to answer definitively. Some might call it fate. Others might attribute it to a series of fortunate coincidences. But perhaps it's the convergence of both that allows for such powerful stories of reconnection to unfold.
It's a thought-provoking concept.
Yeah.
And speaking of thought-provoking, Emily's decision to stay in the same city all those years, hoping that Mark would find her,
Right.
raises some interesting questions about the psychological impact of adoption on birth mothers.
Yeah.
Did she elaborate on her reasons for staying? Was it purely driven by hope, or were there other factors at play?
While she acknowledged the hope of a reunion as a driving force, she also admitted to a degree of fear. The fear of the unknown, of potential resentment from Mark, of not knowing whether he was even aware of her existence.
It's fascinating how hope and fear can coexist so intensely in such a situation.
Yeah.
Her decision to remain in the same city, despite the emotional turmoil it caused, speaks volumes about the enduring power of a mother's love.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like she almost felt tethered to that place, unable to move forward until she knew what had become of Mark.
Right.
It's as if a part of her remained suspended in time, waiting for that resolution. It's like she subconsciously created an anchor for herself, like a way to remain connected to him even in his absence. This whole story really underscores the impact of intuition, right?
Right.
I mean, Emily sensed a familiarity with Mark almost immediately, even before knowing his true identity.
It's remarkable, isn't it, that primal bond
Yeah.
between a mother and her child. It makes you wonder about those unseen forces that draw people together.
For sure. It really does.
Mhm.
This story also got me thinking about, how we define family. Is it purely biological, or is it something more?
That's such a fundamental question, and I think this story really illuminates the, multifaceted nature of family. It can be formed through blood ties, through conscious choice, through shared experiences.
Right. Mark had a loving, adoptive family that raised him, but there was always this sense of incompleteness, this longing for his biological family that couldn't be ignored.
And Emily, on the other hand, harbored this yearning to know her son, like a void in her heart that only he could fill.
And their story, I think, really underscores the idea that family isn't solely determined by, shared DNA,
Right.
but also by these profound connections that we forge, with those who love and support us,
Yeah.
those who make us feel a sense of belonging.
Beautifully articulated, and often those individuals emerge from unexpected sources and enter our lives in the most, serendipitous ways.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thought to hold on to, that even when life takes these unexpected turns, there's always potential for connection, healing, and love.
And for our listeners who may have personal experiences with adoption, either as adoptees or adoptive parents or birth parents, what advice would you offer? I would encourage them to, lean into the complexity of their emotions and experiences. Don't, shy away from those difficult feelings that may arise. Seek out support from therapists, support groups, or trusted individuals who can provide understanding and guidance. And remember that your story is valid and deserves to be heard.
What a poignant reminder. Well, Mark and Emily's story, I think, is just a powerful testament to the enduring power of the human spirit to overcome adversity and find solace in connection and love. It's a reminder that hope and healing are always possible, even in the face of extraordinary circumstances. And as we conclude this deep dive, I want to encourage you, our listeners, to reflect on those connections that shape your own lives, the ones you cherish, the ones you may have lost, and the ones that might still be waiting to be discovered.